Привет, привет. Так, так, вот она, есть презентация, но тут как раз не засчитал слайд, не красиво композит не выпадет.
I am here in the middle of nowhere. There is no there, it is cold there, but I am safe and I am warm. Although it's hard, I know I gotta keep up. No time to lay to drift away. I find my space, I spend my time down the rabbit hole again, and as I fall I can feel the pain. You can't tell me where to go, so I don't know, I just go with the flow. I go with the flow. I'm falling up, I'm falling down, from the sky and from the ground. Up above just like below, and I don't know where I should go. 'Cause I'm stuck in limbo. I'm out of love, but I guess I deserved it. Trying to hide, to pass you by. I'm getting time, feeling fine. I'm light as air, no one can reach me. Lost in a dream, lost in between. Let's keep on flying, let's keep on breathing. I'm falling up, I'm falling down, from the sky and from the ground. Up above just like below, and I up in the party, flyer than everybody. We show up in the party, flyer than everybody. We show up in the party, flyer than everybody. We show up in the party.
We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party, flyer than everybody.
We show up in the party, flyer than everybody.
We show up in the party, flyer than everybody.
We show up in the party.
We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party.
And welcome to Dev Club. First thing first, we're 10. The Dev Club in Estonia started 10 years ago with meetups in Russian language, and we're celebrating that. Russian Dev Club meetups ran already past 100 meetings. And then ones that go under .ee in English, this one is 67th. Particularly today, for agenda we have 3 tracks, and here in this room we have 3 talks. Each of them actually has 3 talks. Here in this room we have. Not 3, but actually 4 talks with a surprise guest. More on that a bit later. And then there are also 2 more tracks. One that is held in Russian, and then one that is held by Tallinn DevOps Meetup guys. Before we proceed with today's agenda, I would like to invite on stage our surprise guest. A person who represents Dev Club Afghanistan community. Yes, you heard that. It's not really a mistake or anything. Really, Dev Club Afghanistan community. Please welcome Basir on stage. Basir on stage.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know how a surprise guest I am, but I will try to surprise you with some achievements and some events that we had in Afghanistan. And we started last year in 2017. And before to dive into the Dev Club and to talk about Dev Club, that how is it going on in Kabul and how we started and what are the progress, I would like to talk a little bit about my country. Thinking of Afghanistan, you could hardly visualize something beautiful except for war, violence, explosions, and bombings. But I really want to talk about the unseen side of my country. There is also another positive side of the country that maybe that would be very interesting for you to know about that. Afghanistan is located in South Central Asia. Our capital is Kabul, and we have around 35 million people, population. And we are the first country who had the first oil painting in the world. It's not Resonance Europe, but it's in Afghanistan. It was in the caves in Bamyan in the central highlands of Afghanistan. And each year we have like 300 days we have sunshine. That's why we are beautiful and we are colorful. And we have the world famous rugs and carpets, and these are very expensive in the world as well. And we are quite rich in natural resources. For example, we have uranium, lithium, gold, silver, copper, oil, and gas. And that's why we have a lot of guests there. And we have organic food and fruit. And that's why we are healthy. We are not going to any doctor in Estonia. And I had no visit with doctor since I came in 2014. By the way, I did not introduce myself. My name is Basir, and I'm PhD student at Tallinn University, and I'm running a startup company in Afghanistan, and it's called Cyberon. And recently we had a very successful project with one of Estonian largest company that I would talk in the side meetings. If you are interested to do a business in Kabul and you want to have some IT projects in Afghanistan, then I would be more than happy to share the opportunities with you. And Afghan saffron is world popular, and we ranked #1 in the world for the quality. And over $2 billion have been invested in ICT in Afghanistan. And we have over 21, sorry, information communication technology. I think it's very common. Okay, but we also have communication. Yeah. And we have over 21 million GSM subscribers. Mobile penetration is 91%, but we don't have too much internet users compared to this mobile penetration and the development that we had in the past 15 years. We have over 500K internet users so far. But still we are optimistic, and we are working to build our infrastructure. We started DEVCLUB back in 2017 in September, and we were highly inspired by DEVCLUB.EE. I have been participating in DEVCLUB.EE, and I was learning, and the name I liked, and I wanted to have a similar community in Afghanistan. So, and 10 events have been held so far, and very successful events, and we have over 2K followers on Facebook. And you can see the numbers in the statistics in this graph. We had up to 300 participants in our events. And you can see we had female participants, and also the less number that we had in our events, it was around 70 people that they participated in our 6th event. And we started with our mission statement. I don't know why the picture is not showing here.
Oh, it might be.
It's downloading, or?
No, it's already downloaded. I think it downloaded from Google Drive this way. I think it, or just this keynote showing it, like, or is it's to do with GDPR? Who knows?
Okay.
But I can quickly try to open it from from the browser.
Google. Yes.
Yeah. It's this one.
No, you have to move it.
Yeah, I'll just move it here.
Okay.
And
it.
It wasn't the best idea.
And by the way, it's not my fault. I have not bring any viruses.
I can confirm that, at least.
Okay. Anyway, we started with our mission statement that we strive to establish Afghanistan's first talented-based collaborative developers community. We might have different objectives for establishing this community, but we have the similar mandates at DEVCLUB.EE, DEVCLUB.Russia, DEVCLUB.Europe, and other DEVCLUBs. Our participants were the most talented, enthusiastic, and motivated, and they were very keen to learn. And they were highly interested to participate in each of our events. So the picture is not visible, but there is a huge crowd of the participants that you can see. And it's not only, thanks God. It's not only male-dominant community, as you may judge us or tell us that, okay, Afghanistan is very male-dominant community and there is very conservative community, but no. We had a lot of female participants, actually. Half of our participants are female, but they are not, most of them are not appearing on the photos, but they are very interested to participate and to be a developer because they can work from home, and in some places, if they are not allowed to go for working for a job, so they can do and they can develop from home. And as well, some other photos. Our event has a different program or a different agenda. We are having a keynote speaker who is talking around a specific topic for the event. We are choosing the topic through our Facebook page, and we are announcing on the Facebook, and we are getting our followers idea that for which topic they are voting. And then we are selecting that topic, and then we are selecting a keynote speaker, and then we are having a panel of 4 members. And these 4 members are talking about a specific topic, and there is a discussion and debate. And these panelists are representing the private sector, public sector, academia, and also some other technology experts, and also developers who can share their experiences, and they can share their insights and inputs. So, in each panel, we are trying to have a female panelist, and why we brought the public and private sector together, and why we involve them in the developer community. In Afghanistan, we have challenges still with the IT project, with the software projects. The failure rate is quite high, and a lot of investments have been done so far, but none of the projects have been successful. And that's the reason, because the huge reason is that they are not coding or they are not developing with standards. So there was nothing known with the name of standard, and they were not interested to work with standards. They were just wanted to make money, and a lot of money have been invested. So we wanted to bridge the gap between the developer community and also the public sector. And meanwhile, we wanted to do an advocacy, and we wanted to do some capacity building for the public sector, so to train them and to tell them, hey, this is not the proper way to go for some software projects. You should do this, and you should conduct the evaluation, you should do the testing, and the development should be done through this way. So that's why we brought in each event, in each panel, we are having some representatives from public sector, from the government as well. And the government really welcomed this initiative, and they are very they are quite eager to participate in this in the Dev Club, and they learned a lot. And we had a very successful stories in the Kabul municipality, in the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, in the Ministry of Public Health, and the Ministry of Higher Education, who participated in our events. And at the end of each event, we are having Q&A, and the participants are asking our panelists, and the panelists are trying to answer their questions. So, and of course, the events are not only about development, it's also about it has a lot of fun. We have the similar like you're having refreshments, and we have the same, and yeah. We have developed our website, and it's open source, and we are so passionate about the open source in the community, and it's shared on GitHub. So if any other Dev Club community wants to use our website, so they can easily use it, and I will show you a demo of our website as well. So we have got some contributors to our website as well. We are working on a developer conference, and it will happen in 2019, and it will be the first ever developer conference in the country. So we are trying to bring developers from different cities, and we would like to, at least it will be a platform to know each other, and it will be a platform to collaborate and to communicate with each other. So please also join our DEVCLUB.EE. So DEVCLUB is I'm a Mac user, so I can.
But it's not mirrored. I would recommend you to mirror display first.
Okay.
Just let then you can go with
DEVCLUB.EE. So we wanted to connect developers with each other, so that's why we brought the Google map here and also a search box there, and the developers can only join this platform through their GitHub accounts. So through the GitHub accounts, we can see their activities, and we can see, okay, they are the real developers, and we can see, okay, what skills and what programming language do they know. So and luckily we got some developers around the world. So they are joining our platform, and they are here on our website. So you can search for the developers by location, by their skills, and also the list of events are here. So that what topics we have covered so far in the Dev Club. So you can see them here, and. So please join our DEVCLUB.EE. And we truly believe in to connect with the world, with you, with other developers around the world, and to collaborate and work for the positive changes. And we also believe that we move together forward. And thank you very much. Please don't forget to like our Facebook page, and to see some other photos and videos and posts and comments. Thank you. And also one thing else. There is a link, and I hope the organizers will share the presentation. So please watch the AMC in Afghanistan version 2.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Basir, for working with Dev Club community for Afghanistan. And back to our agenda. Today we have 3 talks. First one held by TransferWise on Eric Gaio on how to build a payment card product. Then continuing the fintech and payment card topic, Dmitry Buzin will go deeper in how payment cards really work, and then we switch back to some more kind of generic developer stuff with Anton, DevClub's very own Anton Arkhipov, with introduction to Kotlin DSLs. And then please welcome our first guest, Eric, on stage.
Let's make a mic check. Is it okay? Perfect. So welcome to Dev Club. Merry Christmas time, everyone. My name is Eric, and I'm coming from TransferWise. So to give some boring facts about myself, in terms of education, I've been studying both software and hardware engineering. So did my bachelor in software and decided to switch a little bit things in life and studied hardware modeling and design in masters. And later on, to spruce up my soft skills, I also did some public relations and diplomacy. And in my free time, if I code, then it's usually related to robots or computer vision. So trying to diversify my professional life and my studies and about like whatever I do in free time as well. But when it comes to my professional life, then it's my 5th year going on in TransferWise right now. And as a technical lead, I have built several teams there from scratch. So usually jumping in, building some first services, kicking it off, growing the team and people around me, and then trying to find something next, some new challenge. And for last 1.5 years, I've been entirely focusing on payment cards and payment card industry because we at TransferWise, we decided to issue our own debit card. We successfully did it, and today the goal of the presentation is to walk you through the process of how we approach that, and maybe simulate together the process of actually building something from scratch that will work in every shop out there. So I guess TransferWise is a relatively popular company in TransferWise, so probably you have at least heard about that. So raise your hand, how many people know TransferWise? Okay, that's vast majority. Well, makes sense. However, just to make sure that you remember the story, I will very briefly explain what TransferWise does. So our mission is to help people with international lifestyles in their daily finances. So we want them to operate with their money quickly, conveniently, with transparent fees. And like one thing that we are focusing on really strongly is to change the industry and bring the cost of international finance to zero. So we are going there step by step, dropping prices quite often as we can. For a consumer and for a customer of TransferWise, it means that transfers are about 10 times, up to 10 times cheaper than with regular banks. So like if we think about transfer, for example, between US and Thailand, and the way how we managed to achieve that is that we built an alternative to correspondent banking. So we built our own network of banking partners and financial services that we integrate, and we make it faster. So for example, by integrating with a few central banks in Europe, we also got to speeds that were impossible before. For example, some transfers taking less than half a minute to cross the ocean or sea. And today we are transferring about 3 billion volume every month, which is more than the GDP of Estonia, and current growth is about 100% in terms of volume. And in the last 9 months, we managed to drop prices 30 times. So this is probably the thing that actually guarantees the success in future as well. Yeah.
It means probably across different locations. So you didn't drop exactly 30 times globally, but in different locations.
That's right. So we have like hundreds of different corridors worldwide, as most of the world is covered. So regionally approaching each of them and trying to have a consistent drop of prices like all over the world as quickly as possible. When the transfer product was implemented, we decided to make a next step, and we implemented something which is called borderless account to make the finances really borderless for our customers. And the reason why I'm explaining like few facts about TransferWise is just for you to realize how we, a non-bank organization, actually got to the card issuance business. So briefly explaining you the story that was before the card. And in our new product, we made it possible for people to hold money inside of TransferWise, because before that you had to upload the money and it was instantly, as quickly as possible, just shipped. However, it was not possible to kind of, for example, like safeguard your money in TransferWise or have like several currencies. So right now it's possible to hold 45 different currencies. It's possible to also receive money into your TransferWise account. So we actually are giving out real bank details in US, in Europe, and in UK, and in Australia. So for example, if any of our European customers decides to move or decides to do business abroad, if they travel to US, then they can instantly start giving out invoices with their TransferWise US bank details and receive money from their clients like they have a bank in US. And the last bit that was missing is to actually enable the everyday spending for those customers. So the main solution in the world today to make it available and possible is to implement the payment card. And it's one of the newest products in TransferWise. It's only 7 months old, so we started in May. At this point, we are growing about 20% month to month in terms of volume, and we have 220,000 active cards, and right now we have more than 50,000 weekly active users. And in total, in 7 months, we gathered about 7 million transactions. And now the actual talk begins. So we are going to talk about how to build the issuance system, and then once you have some cards out there and you have some customers, then how to how to make transactions work and how to support them. And there is definitely like really interesting paradigm shift happening right now in the world, because in the past, let's say like 10, 20 years ago, when you said a payment card, then it was almost equalized to bank card. Like, I mean, it's a quite common term still nowadays, because everyone is used to banks being the issuers of cards. But I think like especially maybe like 8 years ago, like in the beginning of 2010s, a lot of prepaid companies came to market, making it possible for non-banks to start issuing cards. And I gathered just some random interesting examples, like for example, one of our partners in Germany and different bigger European countries is issuing Vodafone SmartPass cards. So you get two things in one package, the SIM card and the debit card with it. So you don't have to manually top up your mobile balance anymore. It actually acts as one, so you are using your mobile balance basically in the shop. Or for example, I found several Circle K cards in different countries, in Denmark, Lithuania, and somewhere else. Well, again, the principle is that you have your like retail or your petrol station business, and then you add the card and you get a new product which actually enhances your main business. For example, with cards, they are having some interesting discount and like membership system that makes customers more loyal. So you boost your business by adding cards there. Or for example, like everyone probably in Estonia have seen partner cards which have been issued in collaboration with LHV. Again, putting the loyalty system on top of the card and like shipping it as one product. Or for example, latest news from Latvia, one of their popular and strongly growing fintechs, Mintos, the peer-to-peer lending platform, also added card to their business. So if so many companies recently started doing that, then most likely there is some need for that, and it helps them to grow the business, which means that we as engineers might get into a situation that one of our clients or our own product or our own company will decide to build it. So I'm going to share a little bit of thoughts and insights about what maybe is in front of you and what you will be experiencing.
Quick question, maybe do a little crash course. So what makes an oil company issuing a payment card, or a telco issuing a payment card, or a payment provider like TransferWise issuing a payment card, or to stand out from a bank? What makes a bank different? So what is the key difference between, so TransferWise, for example, is not a bank, right?
That's
so
right.
What is key difference between a bank and TransferWise? Why TransferWise is not a bank? Or why Circle K issuing a payment card is not a bank? What does it take to become a bank?
So the question was, so what are those non-bank companies and how they differ from banks? So if we look at those like few examples, then the main difference is that the business that they are working in has nothing to do with banking. So if we think about telecommunications, then their primary business is something else, but they find ways to, for example, attach customers more strongly to their customer, or for example, bring in some new convenience feature that was not possible before. So forget about your monthly payments for your mobile plan. So just use our card on your everyday basis, and like we will get your monthly payments from there instead of you making it manually. So I mean, for me, like prepaid and like also like recently non-bank debit card product is just enhancement of on top of something else.
But what is bank then? The one who issues loans, or the one who?
Well, it's.
I'll interrupt. For example, if I'm not mistaken, to open a bank in Latvia, you have to have 2 million euros reserve funds.
You have 2 million euros.
Well, okay, that's fine. But also, you are acting as a special type of a company. You have to give a lot of reports every month. If you have some problems with taxes, you may lose license immediately, and so on and
So
so on.
you get a proprietary banking license, and then you're regulated differently.
Yeah, it's the strongest regulated companies in country.
So it's actually a cool trick. You kind of pretend to be in different business and then do banking on the side.
Yeah.
And get away with the
Yeah, but
reporting.
banking is very narrow layer. So let's not call card issuance banking. Like it's a different ball game. So banking is a different business, all right? So
what is then
let's stop on
banking
that.
business? I'm trying to understand what is exactly banking business.
The main business is to get money from clients for small percent and to give loans for
Давай.
higher percent.
So loan business
That's
and
it.
bank is banking.
So giving out loans itself is not banking.
Yeah.
Banking is borrowing money to lend out money.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
effectively making money off of other people's money. So in that sense, if you go to Pandora is not a bank. So if you look at Swedbank, however, then what Swedbank is able to do is effectively borrow
the-
money from Deutsche Bank and issue out the bonds to lend money out to customers.
So the
and
trick
make
is
money
where you
on
get the
that.
money you issue. If you
Whether-
get it from banks, as a bank, then you're a bank.
in a way, the question is also like whether you actually have the money that you give out to people as loans. So
Yeah,
for a
of
bank, you
course.
actually don't need to have it. You sort of need to
Well,
have it.
they have it.
on
They need to
paper.
have it partially. Yes.
Well, then you need to have it sort of as digital, numbers.
Okay, I think I got it. Thank you.
Cool. So let's focus on the main topic of the evening. I mean, not the evening, but this presentation. Thank you. So in the lingo of the card issuance industry, if we decide to issue the card, we are usually called program managers, and each card product is also referred as a card program. So what do you think? What are top 5 elements that we need to choose or decide upfront to start issuing something?
Processing service, card scheme, currency.
Okay, so we have 3.
Numbers range, the range of the numbers you can have on your cards.
Going too deep, so let's aim at higher level things. So first 3 points were actually really good. Processing a scheme, for example, deciding which currencies we want to support with our card. So at some point we want to have physical cards as well. So if we want to distribute physical cards, then we also need a manufacturer. What else? Sorry?
License.
And ATM machine.
Terminals and ATM machines, yes, this is the step that you can take when you have lots of cards. But to start just issuing maybe like a smaller amount of cards, you don't need to be dealing with your own terminals yet. So if we pick the scheme, we will have terminals provided by other merchants and other banks. So anything else? Especially after
Legal framework that you need as well.
okay, let's call it licensing. Really good point. After production of cards, something needs to happen. Not yet. Too early. Too early. Okay, we need shipping company. We need someone to actually distribute cards as well after they have been produced. And you said money. Yes, we also need to hold money somewhere in the system. Let's start from scheme. Scheme in the payment cards industry is also often referred as a licensor. By the way, how old are payment cards in general?
70.
50 years.
Okay, so
30 years.
so the answer is there. So it actually started in 50s. Before that, like already 100 and 150, 200 years ago, there were attempts to replace cash because it was not safe and not convenient to carry cash or gold all the time. But it never succeeded because those payment cards that were used before 1950s were usually very localized, so they were local to one specific merchant, and only that merchant was accepting those cards. So, and then usually, as I said before, cards are somehow treated as they are related to banks, but in the beginning of the history of card schemes, they were actually driven by merchants. And the very first, like a real widespread payment card scheme was Diners Club, which was an association of different restaurants in US. And they made it possible to go to the restaurant without cash, pay for your dinner or your lunch, and then in the end of the month pay off all your dinings all together. And of course, they added a little bit of markup so that restaurants would get some extra as well. And 50s in US was quite interesting time. So people were striving towards the American dream, and the personal debt per capita was growing more than 3 times in 1 decade. So there was really good timing for like a widespread like classical consumer merchant credit card to go into market, and it was American Express by Bank America. And interestingly, until 1966, all cards were actually credit cards, which means that customers were using cards to pay for goods with money that they didn't own. And in the middle of 60s, 3 interesting things happened. The very first debit card in the world was introduced, so customers started using money that they actually have in their balance. First ATM was introduced, so it was possible to use the card to actually get the physical cash. And today's main players in the payment card scheme were born. It was Visa, which was rebranded from Bank Americard, and MasterCard, which originally was called MasterCharge, but it was pretty much just renaming of the same company. And then there has been some innovation, but not so big one. And out of like big schemes, maybe the freshest one nowadays is UnionPay, which is growing steadily in Asia. And I would say that for me, if we think about big schemes, there are probably only like 5, which is American Express, Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, and Diners.
But how about Mir? The Russian one.
Well, yeah, it's good. I know that we will maybe hear a little bit of Mir from Dmitry, who will be giving the next talk. I have no personal contact with Mir.
So you haven't considered?
No. We have negotiated with Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, but we are not even like operating from Russia in terms of remittance. So Russian market is still not completely uncovered for us. Well, then we were talking about issuance license. So issuance license controls 3 things, or like 3 parties and relationships between them and liabilities. It's customer, program, and the scheme. And we can, in a simplified way, we can say that there are 3 ways how licenses can be obtained. The simplest way, like level 1, is co-branding. So going to some bank and asking them to issue the card together so that you can put the logo on it. Most likely, this is how partner card, debit card is built. Then level 2 is something which is called affiliate membership. So you kind of get already at some level licensed by the scheme, but you need some bank that will help you, that will actually give you some additional services so that you don't need to take all the liabilities that are required for full issuance of the card. This is probably the most reasonable one if you are going to build things completely yourself, and in future maybe are considering to fully own the full setup, at least in terms of the legal setup. And the most hardcore one is principal membership, so you are full member of MasterCard or Visa. The complication here is it is difficult to enter the market. Most likely if you go to Visa or MasterCard today and you have brand new like issuance program that you want to launch, they will not trust you enough because it's a lot of financial liability. You need security deposits, things like that. You need daily settlements. So financially, it's a risk for them. So mainly because of that, they want you to partner up with someone else who they already trust, so they can see that your program works, and then maybe later they will grant you the principal membership. So the issuance license is then usually obtained by some organization, and they sign the contract with MasterCard, get the principal membership, and can start lending it out to others. Yes, shoot your question. So we started with affiliate membership, and then we upgraded to principal membership. And if I'm talking to you about like trust issues or necessity to convince big schemes for them to trust you, then I'm actually talking about like personal experience. Like this, our journey was not directly to principal, but actually having this small step up front.
Is it a secret who was your principal before?
Yes, it is a secret because, or like let's say that it's a secret. So I will then quickly tell the difference also. So in a co-branded setup, it works. But
you can also point it directly to screen. It's supposed to work as well.
But it has tremendous lag. So in co-branded scheme, it will be always written who is the issuer, who is the principal issuer. In affiliate membership, as you already have some relationship with scheme, they will allow you to put your name on the card. So it will be never written on the card who is actual issuer. And as we started with affiliate membership, all of our cards since the beginning always had a written text behind that this card has been issued by transferwise.com. Thank you, good question. All right, then we need to have manufacturer. Hopefully you will then choose the location as close to your customers as possible. As majority of our customer base is in UK, then we chose the facility in UK. Then processor, and the processor's job is to take care of operations that require PCI compliance. Have you heard of PCI compliance? Yes. Cool. The saddest guys in the room usually say yes. So like in the case of like building it then from scratch, if you don't want to like get your own hands greasy and you want someone else to deal with PCI compliance, then they will be generating PANs for you, which is primary account number, so 16 digits on the card, personalization data, PIN code, expiry date, and putting together it into the package so that it can be converted into a real physical card, and will connect you to the scheme. And about PCI DSS, if someone hasn't heard about it, so it's basically a set of data security standards that all issuers and merchants who are accepting card payments should follow. And the main purpose is to actually secure the money of customers, protect the data of cardholders, and implement strong access control and monitor systems where card details are ever involved. And then we add shipping company that will be distributing our cards. Again, smart choice is to find someone who has good regional reach, and if you are having a like wider spread of customer base, for example, whole European Economic Area, then you would also want to find someone who has a strong network of relationships in the region.
One more question.
Shoot.
For how long you've been looking for the processor? How many players you've been considering? How much this took the time for this processor?
Yeah, so in our case, I reviewed about 10 different processors in the lifetime. And in the lifetime, because we are also entering some like new markets fairly soon, so it's like Asia, US, and Europe, and it might be that not all processors that are great have like full international coverage. Because of that, sometimes in different regions we have been looking at different guys. But in Europe, I think we selected 3 first that were looking good, and then out of those 3 just filtered out the one that seemed to be the best one. Yeah, it's not a secret because they have our logo on their website. It's Carta Worldwide that has been selected in our case for European market.
Which one?
Carta Worldwide. It's a Canadian processor, but they have data centers also in Europe and in Canada, and yeah, main development facility, for example, is in Morocco. So it has been also interesting to travel.
What the Mark just kind of pushes that kind of services to merchants right now very heavily?
So it's because of the nature of our business. So like we initially our bank details and our balances support more than 40 different currencies. So because of this factor of like multi-currency setup, and like because of that we had to implement a lot of things ourselves because it was not convenient to do it with existing processors. That's why I think we picked them, because they gave us most freedom to not fall into the perimeter of PCI compliance, but implement everything that we wanted.
Will you talk later about your adventure with the processor integration? Or this is not part of this integration?
Well, let's see. I'm also ready to stay after the event and maybe have a chat for 20 minutes. No problem. But yeah, as I told you, at some point, maybe like you will manage to convince Scheme to become the principal and cut the middleman out, and then you will actually get your own license. So now we need to speed up a bit. Yeah, let's speed up. So now you will need to follow, because a lot of things will be happening on the screen. So usually processor has 3 layers that you need to integrate with. One of them is the API to issue cards and manage cards. A second one is the connectivity to Scheme, so supporting authorizations, and third is reporting, finalizing payments. So first of all, like our processor, for example, for card issuance and management of that, has an JSON endpoint and JSON like RESTful API. So if we think about what would be the possible services in our architecture, then it might be something like card management service. Of course, not referring to particular names that we have in TransferWise, just throwing in some random possible names. And most likely, if our customer will be talking to us, we probably want something like identity or identification service to understand who is sending us those requests. And definitely, probably we don't want our services to be actually visible from the public internet, so we can implement some gateway that will be cutting the traffic off and like proxying it internally into the internals of the system. And then also a good idea that you might consider is not to order any cards synchronously. So what you will have most likely is at processor side some API endpoint that is saying, please register me a card, but you don't want customers to be triggering of that API call synchronously. Most likely you want to collect all orders and then asynchronously, when your processor is definitely up, get them all dispatched. So from our experience, we benefited in terms of customer experience and stability of the system when we extracted those things into two separate flows. And then we have some JSON API calls coming from our customer's phone, and then we process that data asynchronously, send it to the management service that is responsible for talking to processor, and then we tell about every card that has been created in the meanwhile in the system. So usually what processor then does, they collect all those stats about all cards, and then they start shipping personalization files to manufacturer. And there are different protocols implemented for that. For example, Gemalto, that is one of the biggest producers of payment cards and chips in the world, they have implemented their own, which is called Perso, and it's a binary, and it is designed to transfer card details and card holder details securely. And they also have built machinery that is actually taking those files and as an input and makes the personalization happen. So once per day, the personalization file that holds all the cards that have been created in the past 24 hours. And then manufacturer is responsible for shipping those cards out or delivering them to the shipping company. And then finally, if everything goes well, then eventually in 1 to 3 days in Europe, the card gets delivered to the customer. And now our customer has a card. Let's talk about accounts and balances. Yes, question.
Was it a kind of marketing decision that your cards are personalized with name on?
Yes.
Right. And was that a marketing decision? Because Revolut did the opposite. They just make cards and they just send you one and then you personalize it yourself.
Yes. So the difference between TransferWise and Revolut originally was that we started issuing debit cards right away, which is a different type of the program, when technically they are exactly the same. The only difference is in maybe trust of merchants. So definitely debit cards, which are regularly issued by banks, are more trusted and are not anonymized. And that's why we started right away from personalized cards. And I personally also, I like personalized cards more. Okay, let's talk about money. That proposal came from there. So eventually we will also have some money service that will be holding balances of our customers, and then your balance is somewhere in a database. So problem with that is that as you are a regulated financial service now, you have e-money that is basically a license that allows you to hold money in your system. So in reality, it's not as simple that you just have a database. You actually also need to make sure that whenever auditor comes in, that you can actually prove that all that money is segregated from the company's money and that we are not mixing them together. We are not in fractional reserve banking, so we also cannot invest customers' money anywhere. We need to guarantee that 100% of that money is somewhere in secure, safe place. So we need to open bank accounts in those particular currencies to put this money aside. So on an hourly basis, our operational teams are monitoring how much money is in total in balances of TransferWise. Yes?
Question about story money. Do you have one big account for several customers, or you create an account per customer?
So you mean in the safeguarding level?
Yes.
Okay, so in safeguarding level, it's basically collateral. So you collect, let's say that in TransferWise we hold 1 billion British pounds, in total, and so the meaning of safeguarding is that at any given hour we need to have a physical representation of that money in real bank accounts. So underneath we create virtual bank details, so you can use them personal money, but when it comes to They are, of course, in one big pot.
Only you were a bank yourself.
But we are not.
Actually, banks do not have all customers' money. Like at the moment, in the bank, they cannot give all money to the customers.
Yes, that's
so
what
why you should guarantee that?
Like because we don't have banking license, we don't need it to pursue our mission. So in our case, our license requires us to give the maximum guarantee to customers and prove it constantly to auditors.
You explain it. It's a debit card. Debit card, that's the trust that you should have money there actually somewhere behind it. If you have prepaid, then you can do whatever you want.
Yes, so on an hourly basis, we update the safeguarding values, and so far as our product is only growing, then so far we have been always only adding money there because more money flows in than customers actually spend.
Do you use your own product for the transferring money between settlement accounts?
Well, we have our own treasury team that is responsible. So basically how it works is that we have different product teams that are doing some financial operations, and we all send Kafka messages to our liquidity team, and then treasury team has their own sets of tools that manage all currencies and move them across the system like it's necessary for TransferWise to operate.
You mentioned your card works in 45 currencies. Does it mean that you have 45 settlement accounts in all of these currencies as well?
Yes.
Okay, that's
of course.
very complicated.
Yeah. Okay, now let's quickly talk about making the card purchase. So we need a merchant for that. Usually merchants don't own payment terminals. They actually rent it from acquiring banks. So acquiring bank is a bank that has signed a contract with a scheme that they can actually take money out from cards of random customers. So they give the terminal. And let's quickly talk about scheme infra and connectivity. So nowadays it's still based on TCP connections, and the protocol that is being used is ISO 8583. Later in the next talk you will hear a lot about that. And both MasterCard and Visa are using the version from 1987, and most likely in the nearest decades it won't be replaced. And there are actually many dialects of the same protocol. For example, it's not only used for cards, it's also used for different other electronic payments applications. For example, when we were integrating with one of central banks in Europe, then they are also using just a different variation of the same protocol.
The binary protocol.
It is binary protocol, and it's, to explain very simply, later there will be much better explanation, but it's like a hash map of hash maps where each value can be also like a key value map. So our customer finally enters the card into the terminal, and the responsibility of merchant is just to validate that the amount that they enter into the POS terminal is correct. And if PIN code is all right, and it's usually validated on the device itself, then this terminal is sending out the ISO 8583 message, which is the authorization request. So it goes to scheme, and then scheme somehow needs to decide where to actually send this message. So schemes have program configurations. Those program configurations have three main parameters. First of them is the bank identifier code. So we are trying to understand, based on the card number, which issuer it is related to. And then in the same configuration, there is also the specification of where to send the payments. So the processor endpoint conf as well. by that, for example, in case of TransferWise, by first 6 digits of the card, they realize that the processor is somewhere in Europe, this and that data center with this and that IP and port. So they are sending the same message over to our processor. And when it finally starts reaching the processor, we would like to start receiving those messages somewhere as well. So we need to integrate with processor. There are different ways how to do that. Some processors nowadays are also offering some fancy JSON like API contracts. In our case, we decided to use a system very similar to what schemes use, so same ISO 8583, but a modified and more modern version of it. So then what happens on the processor level, they are cutting out everything that requires PCI compliance. So they are replacing the PAN with the token or processor ID that we agreed upfront with processor. So every time when we create a card, they tell us the unique reference to that card. And when messages come in, the main difference between being directly integrated with scheme is that we are not actually dealing with card numbers. So they replace it with something that we can use to recognize which customer's card it is. And then we talk with money service and ask them to withdraw the funds, or actually, in fact, when we are dealing with authorization, it's not really withdrawal yet, it's just the booking of the money on your account. That's why usually when you go and when you shop somewhere and when you see next day your bank statement, then you see that the money has not been deducted, it's in the booked or in reserved state because the payment has not been finalized yet. And then if everything okay, then we send the okay message back to inform the merchant that we acknowledge the payment and that we have reserved the funds. And then customer gets goods or services. If for customer everything has ended, then for merchant and for issuer, definitely not. It's actually only the halfway because we need to finalize the payment. So what happens next is that we need to finalize the clearing process of that payment, and we will need to settle this money to scheme so that they can pay it out to merchants, because merchant eventually needs to get money that they got paid electronically. Why the movement from booked state into the finalized state is slow is because authorizations are nice. They work in real time on a binary level, but the finalization of payments is still happening in a set of reports. So there are different set of reports that issuers deal with. First of all, reports about all transactions that has been finalized. Then transaction collaterals, so putting together all sums in particular currencies. And then the settlement advisements, so MasterCard or Visa are asking issuers to pay for those payments, and these two processes are always separate. So it can also happen that there is something wrong with transaction details, but when the advisement for settlement comes in, then issuers have to pay, and if something goes wrong, then later there is a separate dispute service, and later we will be figuring out with scheme if something was right or wrong. But on a day-to-day basis, when requirements to settle come in, then they need to be respected and paid even if sums are completely off. And there have been cases that we have heard from other banks that sometimes some mistakes happen and the settlement is like 10 times bigger than it is normally, and it's obviously a mistake, but it needs to be paid, so money needs to be found from somewhere, and later in a separate process those bugs are being fixed. So then from treasury we will be settling money to scheme, and scheme takes care of giving this money to the acquiring bank, so acquiring bank can give it to good merchant that was selling their goods by accepting card payments. And now you have seen the whole picture. We started from like very basic high-level points, and now we got to the whole picture, and hopefully it was understandable. So it was very, very experimental. I have never tried this format before. Cool. How much time do we have? All right, cool. So, no problem. We have implemented 3D Secure, and if you want, I can share a bit of details on top of that as well. So, thank you guys, and yeah, if anyone feels that you want to build a payment card, then like definitely we are in huge need for full stack iOS, Android, and designers.
Thank you so much. This is for you. The format was very cool. Great. I would like to have you get on the talk the other side. Meanwhile, 3 news. We don't give away gifts for the first talk because the vote thing was not active, so we couldn't really decide who deserves the award for the best talk of 2018. Please be more active with voting next time. News number 2. There's a Riga Dev Days promo code that will appear here in 1 minute. Expires tomorrow, so if you're going there, please use it. News number 3. €1 drinks out there, free food out there. Let's go have some. And see you in 15 to 20 minutes.